What is up, guys? It is DMG here, and today we are going to be looking at the instructions and tactics for the 4-4-2 formation. Now, I did use this formation in the previous weekend league, and I did manage to go 14-1 with it while using a pretty mediocre team. And when I say 14-1, that one loss was also kind of like a connectivity, disconnection type of issue. So essentially 14-1 with a little asterisk next to it. Essentially 15-0. We were 15-0. The 4-4-2 itself is a very good formation and has been for a few years, and this year is no different. It is very good for a little bit of defensive stability depending on how you use your players, and it's also good because you can widen the field and stretch the field a little bit because you do have some wingers, which I found to be very important for this year's FIFA. For the actual tactics themselves, I've mentioned this before, when it comes down to the tactics, this is something that you guys have to personally decide. Tactics are something that really dictate how your players play rather than dictate where they are on the field. Now, obviously, it can really dictate where they are in the field a little bit because obviously you have constant pressure. They're going to be further up the field defensively versus drop back. They're going to be further back defensively. But essentially, instructions are where you want them to position on the field, whereas tactics are kind of how you want them to play. So if you are a little bit more fast-paced, you want to get the ball out and counterattack, then do that. Use tactics that build to that strength. If you want to hoard possession and just kind of break down your opposition, then use tactics that go to that strength. Now, I can give some tips here and there, maybe suggestions that could help. So for example, in my 5-2-1-2 instructions, I said the defensive width can be more narrow because you already have 5 defenders in the back. You can afford to go a little bit more narrow, but that's not going to change everything. And I never really will change everything when it comes to tactics. So again, for tactics, this is just something that I personally want to do. This is just how I personally want to play. I have balanced defensive style and offensive style. The width, depth for defense, and the width and players in the box, corners, free kicks. I mean, essentially everything is kind of default and balanced. The one thing I will add is for defensive depth, I have actually decreased it to 4. I don't really want to go any lower, mainly because I don't really want to be that one depth, sit back player. But the reason why I go from 5 depth, which is what I normally do, or even a little bit higher, to 4 depth is because we don't really have any defensive mids. We only essentially have those 4 defenders in the back. And along with that, the left and right backs are going to have their hands full with wingers, right? With the left and right attacking mids in the 4-2-3-1, or wingers in a 4-3-3, or essentially anyone else, right? Wingers in a 4-4-2 as well. So essentially your only real defenders that are going to be the actual core of the defense are going to be your 2 center backs, because again, there are no defensive mids. So I have the depth on 4 just so then it could hopefully give your center mids a little bit of time to run back and help with the defense. Now on to the instructions, which again are the most important part when it comes to these formation videos. The center backs themselves, they're going to be on default. Stay back while attacking, normal interceptions, things like that. We don't really change that. Moving on to the left and right backs, we're actually going to have them on stay back while attacking. Now, normally we actually have them on balance, but the reason why we have them on stay back while attacking this time is because we already have left and right mids. We don't really need to add width to this. Again, usually the left and right back's job, at least in modern footy, is going to be to kind of bomb forward and add some width to the play. We already have width with left and right mids, so we don't really need to add any more. Like I mentioned before, we don't have any center defensive mids, so if they were to bomb forward, they wouldn't even be in the vicinity of helping out our defense, which would only leave our 2 center backs. So again, it's very important for them to have on stay back while attacking so then they can help us defensively. Moving on to the 2 center mids, and we have one of them on stay back while attacking and cover center, and we have the other on just cover center. Now, obviously, when it comes to cover center, again, we have width. We don't need them to go out wide, so we just have them on cover center so they stay in that middle. However, we do have one on stay back while attacking, and again, I've mentioned this before, this formation obviously does not have any center defensive mids, so there needs to be that little bit of help and link between the defense and the midfield. There's that big gap because again, there's no defensive mid, so it's just defense and midfield. There's that big gap there. So if we have one of the center mids on stay back while attacking, they do play as a center mid, obviously, because that's their position, but they do also tend to drift back a little bit and help with the defense, and they already are kind of in a more defensive position if we happen to get counterattacked. The other center mid is going to be on balance because, as I mentioned before, with that big gap between the defense and the midfield, there's also a big gap between the midfield and the attack. There's no center attacking mid to link up the attack in the midfield. So this center mid is going to be kind of roaming forward a little bit. He's going to have that ability to link up those two strikers with the other center mid and potentially the wingers as well. I do also want to mention that the center mid that's on balanced attack has to have some type of high defensive work rate. So high work rates or medium high work rates. The reason being is because they are also supposed to be helping out defensively, right? It's not as if they are a center attacking mid. They are center mid who happens to roam forward a little bit. They're still trying to help out defensively. So if they are just on, high medium work rates or medium work rates, they're not going to help you defensively whatsoever. So it's important to have that so then you can also have them go forward and come back as well. Next up, we have the left and right mids. So we have them both on comeback on defense, cut inside, and get into the box for crosses. Now, let me address the comeback on defense part, because I know people are going to say that's super defensive, and initially, I would have agreed. A while ago, I definitely would have agreed with that, actually. The reason why I have them on comeback on defense is because, as I mentioned before, there's no defensive mids. So, you may think, okay, there's no defensive mids, but, these guys are wingers. They're out wide. How is that going to help at all? So if you look at the 4-2-3-1 now, you have the 4 defenders and the 2 defensive mids. That's already 6 players helping you out defensively. If you look at the 4-1-2-1-2 narrow, that's the 4 defenders, the defensive mid, possibly the 2 center mids as well, helping out defensively. So that's already 7 players right there. So if you look at the 4-4-2, again, you have the 4 defenders and then essentially no one else. So you do need a little bit of stability and to have them on comeback on defense, so then you can actually have more defensive stability. They won't just stay on the defensive side either. They are left and right mids, so they still will be pushing forward. So essentially they're just going to be support players. They're not going to be involved that much defensively. They're just going to add support, and they're not going to be involved a whole lot on the attack either, because again, they're just support players. So essentially, you just kind of need some high work rates, high stamina, fast players to help out both attacking and defensively. So for the cut inside and get into the box instructions, these are essentially 2 things that just go hand in hand. So as I'm sure you guys have realized, the R1 square or the RB X crosses have been very, very overpowered this year. So if you look at the right side, for example, you're bombing down the right side, either the strikers or the left mid is going to be available for some type of cross in that middle. If not, you can at least hope for it, because there will be someone in that box for a cross, even if they're not going to be open. Finally, we have our 2 strikers, and one of them is going to be on get in behind, stay forward, and the other is going to be on stay central, false 9. Now, let me address something real quick, and that is the false 9 position. Typically, I actually have that position on target man. The reason why I have this specific player on false 9, Anderson Talisca, is because he has high-low work rates. I've realized that if players have high-low work rates, they tend to push that back line a little bit more. Even if you have them on target man, they still tend to get in behind, even if you don't have that instruction on them. So I haven't had to resort to using false 9 so they don't get in behind. So if you were to have like a high medium work rate player like Huang He Chan, or some type of medium work rate player, essentially anything that's not high low, then I would recommend target man. If it is high low, then I would recommend false 9. Now the reason why I have one of them on false 9 or target man, depending on who you have, and I have the other on get in behind, is because these 2 players are going to be working off each other. One is going to be pushing that back line and seeing to see if they can push that defensive line back a little bit. If not, you can always do an over the top through ball. And then the other side is going to be a link up between the midfield and the 2 strikers. As I said before, there's no center attacking mid, so we need some type of link up there. So what I do is I have my player who is on balanced in the center mid area. the striker who is on false 9 is going to be on the opposite side. So Paulinho, he's unbalanced, he's going to be running forward. The false 9 center attacking mid type striker is going to be on the opposite side. It doesn't really matter which side you have him on, right? If Paulinho, for example, was unbalanced on the left side, that'd be fine. Just make sure to have your false 9 player on the right side. The reason for that is because we obviously don't want our players to run into each other. So let's say Teixeira was the one on false 9 and then Paulinho was still unbalanced attack. They would be in like the same area. They'd be running into the same area, and then one player could mark both of them, and it's just going to be a big cluster, and that's just going to, you know, cause too much of a problem for you attacking. So that is going to be it for this video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it and learn some things from it. If you do have any questions, let me know and I'll try to answer them for you. But like I said, that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been DMG. Peace.